This is a review made purely for the love of the product and the people behind it. I'm not sponsored or told what to say. I just have a lot of love for it, and I want to share that with you guys. These are the modular upgradable monitors, MUM for short. I have the MUM 8s, named after the size of their base driver, but they do have several different models listed on screen. The MUM 8 is a 3-way sealed enclosure speaker with, on paper, objectively some of the best drivers that you can get your hands on. You can pause and take a look at the tech specs, but at the end of the day, I don't care about that. I care about accurate reproduction of what is happening inside every session I work on. So let's take a closer look at what exactly I'm personally looking for in a speaker. Transient response, stereo image, and clarity of the entire produced frequency spectrum. So transient response. Think about a kick drum. The batter head gets hit with a beater, and what results is a waveform that looks like this. You see there on the left, where it goes from 0 to 60 almost instantly. That is called the transience of a signal. The quicker, and more importantly, how accurately that is able to come out of the speaker, the better. I've heard monitors where it almost feels like my recorded signal is being played back in slow motion. The speaker drivers are struggling for one reason or another to tell me what is happening, to tell me what that kick drum sounds like, and I lose the ability to hear my transients accurately. I've also heard the opposite, where the monitor is simply giving me too much and arguably incorrect information, causing things to sound like they have that punch in the face when they just don't. The MUM 8s have an incredible accuracy in this regard and are able to give me accurate transient information by starting movement and stopping movement right when they need to. They don't make it sound boring. They don't make it sound hype. They don't make it sound like anything. And that's what I want. So stereo image. This one is pretty self-explanatory. How good do the speakers convey left and right and everything in between? If I pan something, let's say 5% to the right, I don't want it suddenly jumping halfway to the right monitor. Now, I'd argue that the most important aspect in your stereo image is your sense of center. If something is dead in the middle, does it sound like that? Again, thinking back to my previous experience in other systems, I've had speakers where it sounded mostly in the middle, but everything below a certain frequency sounded like it was coming through like both speakers, and I could tell. I do feel the need to explain that a lot of that, maybe over like 50% of that feeling of phantom center, comes from your room and what is immediately surrounding your monitors. I've got extensive treatment in my room from GIK Acoustics surrounding my mix position, and the only point of fault is my spaceship of a desk. It looks bare right now because I've been moving things around, but when this thing is full of gear with metal faceplates, it can get a little reflective, slightly dampen the amazing phantom center of the monitors. However, before I had this desk installed, I was using a folding table for months, like the kind that you play cards on. The center image did sound a bit tighter then, but along with the MUM 8s, I also purchased a Trinov Nova. I do plan to do a video on that guy on its own, but for now, I just want to say that does help a bit in removing those reflections from the desk and tightening up the sound of the speakers. Regardless, the sense of center really does still sound great. And so clarity, there's a lot more technical things going on within the speakers that make up what I'm defining as clarity. Phase relationships between the drivers, the quality of the drivers themselves, and the box that they're put into. But essentially, what I'm talking about is the detail within the frequency spectrum. So the high end is easy. There's a lot going on up there. Finding a speaker that can produce the high end frequencies isn't too hard to come by these days, but where it can get dicey is the mid-range. So the mid-range is often thought about as the most important area to focus on in your mix, as that's what, you know, any old speaker can reproduce. If it's a phone, laptop, car, earbuds, supermarket speaker system, it's going to have that mid-range, but the quality of that mid-range varies enormously. But what's important is that you can hear it accurately. So that's where a 3-way monitor really comes in and really shines over a 2-way system. Put simply, you have 3 speaker drivers focusing on the low, mid, and highs, instead of just 2. This gives them each their own room to breathe and work as efficiently as they can. One of the simpler concepts to explain is called intermodulation distortion. So think of a bass driver having to produce 100 hertz to 1000 hertz. The amount of movement that's required for 100 hertz and the speed of that driver producing 100 hertz is very different from it playing back 1000 hertz. What you end up with is essentially a speaker having extra movement within it moving. Does that make sense? Here, look at my hand. So if a bass driver is doing this for 100 hertz and doing this for 1000, if it has to play both of them at the same time, what it's gonna have to do is a bit of this. You understand? So that can cause what's referred to as intermodulation distortion. A whole bunch of artifacts, and you just lose a lot of clarity that way. And so if I use two hands, one driver is doing 100 hertz and the other is doing, wow, that's hard to do, and the other is doing 1,000, then it's completely separate. And so the extra detail that can be provided with a well-implemented three-way system is incredible. And if you haven't heard that for yourself, add it to your to-do list. It's pretty nice. So bass is something that turns boys into men. These monitors are sealed. They have no ports, so I'm not getting any chuffing in the low end like I might from a front ported design, and I'm not firing low end directly into my back wall like I might with a rear ported design. And the bass driver itself is simply the best bass driver. End of sentence. It looks like I dropped it, though, and it doesn't look normal. That's a unique design in the roll surround of the driver. It comes from a company called Purify, and this might require another hand demonstration. So the roll surround of a bass driver expands and contracts when the driver moves in and out. That is not always entirely even around the whole speaker. So the design that Purify have come up with, the reason why it looks like that is because that design makes it so that the expansion and contraction is always even, no matter the level of excursion in or out that driver is experiencing at that time. So if Purify makes that bass driver and Blisma make the mid-end tweeter, couldn't you just buy it directly from those guys and put them in a box and save a couple bucks? I guess. But this is where I get to talk about my support for the people behind this. So Present Day Production is a YouTube channel. I bought these speakers from YouTubers. But seriously though, they are audio engineers, Mark and James, and they know what good monitoring sounds like. Mark has been a mastering engineer for a very long time and has worked on some of the most high-end monitors that money can buy. He's a big fan of ATC and had a pair of the big boys, the SEM 200s, and they wanted to get into Atmos. They weren't content with just getting like the little iLouds around their room. They wanted like mastering grade monitoring all around the room, no matter where it was. And so that would have cost them more money than I've ever seen in my whole life. So they went a different route. They built their own monitors. If you want to follow their journey and their kind of trial and error of building the speakers, you can find that on their channel below. But people heard their own custom speakers and liked them so much that they wanted a set built for themselves. And so that spiraled into crazy hype and word of mouth spreading about how good of a speaker that they had made. And so I bit the bullet and I bought a pair. Mark and James have grown a community of people that are interested in the same things. They have a public, free-to-join Discord server where you can talk to them and others about speakers, music, games, whatever. They also do live streams on their channel almost every week, talking about, a recent experience they had, announcing product updates, or just a general fun community talk time. And so I'm telling you that to say that this isn't a company per se. It's Mark and James and friends who design and build these monitors by hand and are genuine people who wouldn't think about, making something just for a quick buck. So speaking of buck, the biggest thing to consider in any purchase is how much it costs to purchase it. So I live in the United States, so I'm going to talk in USD. Pair of the Mummates costs about $6,000. Now I know that's a lot of money. In fact, it is the single biggest, purchase price anything I've ever spent. But let me tell you something. When you go to Sweetwater, Vintage King, Guitar Center, whatever, and purchase a pair of speakers, you're not paying the true cost of that product. So there's the cost to the company. So let's say, Yamaha, the cost to them to get the parts and to pay people to build them. And then there's the distributor for Yamaha. And then that distributor is going to mark up their price for their services, and then they sell to the retailers. The retailers are going to mark up their price because, if you go to Sweetwater and buy a pair of monitors, the salesperson that you bought that from gets a percentage of that. Their manager has to eat, so they get a percentage of that. The company itself needs money to stay afloat, so they need a percentage of that. The distributor needs to stay afloat, so they're going to get a percentage, and then finally, Yamaha, KRK, Cali, whatever, they're going to get a percentage of that. I don't know what Present Day Production's margins are. They've said that they're slim. I don't really care. But if you bought these and they sold them at Vintage King or Tommen, Sweetwater, they would cost easily double. I worked in pro audio sales, and I was able to see kind of, the cost to the company and the distributor markups and everything like that. And I can't say anything specific, but if I were to say, you'd be mad. Yeah, if these were sold through regular means of just walking down to the shop and picking them up, you'd easily spend $1,200, $14,000 on these. So, you know, also, if I just went to the local music store and bought HS8s, I'm not emailing the owner of Yamaha telling him what I think. I've talked at length with James in emails and on the server. I got a mix of mine listened to and reviewed on their live stream.
Aiden Swift.
Bring it on.
You've got
Applause.
I can't stop pretending that it's me on top. On top.
Yeah.
So the bass has been auto-tuned.
So I don't think that's auto-tune because that would pull it into the closest diatonic note in the key. So I'm interested as to what the thinking is behind that.
Any question about kind of distortion on this one? I felt it was a little bit hot.
Play a bit more of it.
I feel like the distortion was just on the drums, if anything. I don't know. Anyone else hearing that?
Yeah, I'm hearing a bit of oversaturation maybe, but that gives it a bit of grit, doesn't it? I quite like it as a mix, to be honest.
Yeah.
So Visa in the chat said, I like the mid-range on this. It's fat.
Yeah.
Which is true.
It's just that. Is it a B natural, I think, in the bass? Every time I hear it, I'm just like...
If you're watching...
tell us.
You have
tell us
the
what
secrets.
your thinking is.
Oh, so Aiden has just commented. You're going to love this. I love my decapitator on the drum bus.
Bloody decapitator.
And yes, the bass is tuned. Can't really remember why I did that.
Well, some of the
Fair
best
enough.
things just
Yeah.
happen.
But pretty good mix.
Yeah,
Listen,
really good mix.
Good mixes. You let it go.
Right.
And I continue to hang out in that community. And I think at the end of the day, it does make me happy that I gave my money to people with a name and a face. And I haven't just thrown it blindly into some corporate machine. And that's a discussion for another day, but I'm very happy with these monitors, and I could be even happier and upgrade them. So these are modular, upgradable, and I only have the base version. For about $1,800, I could buy an upgraded mid-inch tweeter and switch out my current Silk models for beryllium. And from the people I've talked to that have done that upgrade, they tell me it's given them increased detail in the transients and the stereo imaging with an even better kind of front-to-back 3D depth. So I do definitely plan on doing that whenever budget permits. So if you want to help with that, you can book me to mix a song, record, run, just... Anyway, I could even upgrade these Mum 8s to Mum 10s. And so how would I do that? Well, they have done one of the most pro-consumer moves I've ever seen. And so what they'll do, if you want to upgrade your monitors to an entirely different model, is have you return the pair that you own, give you the money back, and put it towards your new model. How insanely kind is that? You know, I don't have to bother with selling them on Reverb and losing money to selling used or marketplace fees. I just get the full amount put toward new speakers. And then they plan to have your B stock kind of sold for cheaper or used as kind of a demo pair for other people around the world who are interested in trying these monitors. So if that doesn't speak to you about the goodwill of these people, then I don't know what does. And so I think that's all I have to say. There hasn't been a day where I haven't turned them on and worked on them. Or if there isn't any work to do, I'll just kind of sit back and listen and enjoy the detail. I wholeheartedly recommend them. I was looking at other monitors for sure. PSI, ATC, of course. Barefoot almost came. I almost got my hands as well on some of the Focal, or Focal, whatever, 3-ways. But just because of several different things, you know, I ended up with these, and I love them. They're great. So thank you for watching. You can be kind and like the video, maybe subscribe to the channel, but that's all. I'll see you soon. Bye.